Yeah, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time to come along and listen to this webinar. My name is Nick Olson, and today we are going to be talking about using weather routing for yacht racing. I will share my screen. There we go. So we'll come over here. Before we actually get into the weather routing, I'm going to run through some basic stuff so that, excuse me, everybody has, I'm going to assume that we're going from complete newbies through to people that have a bit more experience. So how do we get the data that PredictWind has? How do we access it? There's two main ways. There is the PredictWind app, which we can use on cellular Wi-Fi connections. It does everything that you could ever want for your weather needs. So you've got your weather routing, you've got all the models in there, you've got wind maps, you've got validation tools, wave maps, departure planning, local knowledge. We've got everything's in there. And so that's great if you're at the dock, at home, doing planning, researching events, things like that. You can use the PredictWind app. What it doesn't do is save data offline. So whenever I'm doing a two-handed race, I will always use the offshore app, even if we are, a 50 miler or something. And basically I will be in cellular range that whole time. I use the offshore app because then I can open it at any time. I've got all my routing downloaded, all my maps, currents, all sitting there, and without having to load anything. So yeah, the offshore app will work on basically any satellite connection. It also works on your web connection. So you can tether to your phone, or if set it up at home, and anything through to your Starlink connection. It does download GRIBs. GRIB, if you don't know what GRIBs are just a file format that we use for weather files. It has compression capability in it, so it'll make those files smaller. Yeah, the offshore app's been around for a while, and we're continually developing it. It's a cool tool, and can really be super useful to your racing. So, and just on the apps, you can use that on a laptop, so a Mac or a PC, on a iPhone, iPad, Android tablet, Android phone. So you've got plenty of options there. You're not limited to just one platform. So it's definitely depending on what you like to use. I know when I'm sailing, I use an iPad. I the rest of the time I use my laptop, but obviously, on a wet boat, laptops aren't always that good. So, modeling, we put a huge amount of effort into the weather models we run, and obviously this is a critical part of yacht racing is having the best weather data that you can get. We are a max charge ECMWF customer, so we get you actually get the models earlier, and we get the highest resolution that ECMWF offers. So getting the ECMWF model an hour before someone else is a pretty big advantage, and that's actually just got even earlier in the last month, the update time on that. And then we have the other models that we display. Spire is only available through PredictWind, and it is really good offshore. We did a study on it. Does a really, really great job offshore. So if you're doing, big ocean passages, can give you a good advantage. It would actually beat the ECMWF offshore. UKMO is the number 2 weather model in the world, behind ECMWF from a national weather agency. And then we have the GFS, the PWE, and the PWG. And I'll talk about these a little bit. We'll come down here and we'll talk about the high resolution models. So what the sort of the superpower of all of these high res models is their short term benefits. They will beat the global models on the day and the day before and the day of sort of thing. So, if you've got high resolution modeling, you're going to get all of your, thermal effects, funneling, all that detail that you don't get in global models. I know here in Auckland in the summer, the PWG does an amazing job. I have kids on the water nearly every day, so spend a lot of time looking at the weather around here, and it does an amazing job, especially in summer. And I'll look at it. I'll show you in a minute. We actually have a validation tool where you can actually look at models and see which one's been performing the best where you are. So we have the HER and the NAM in North America. Again, high resolution models, and the HER updating regularly. And in Europe, we have the Arome, which again, the high resolution short term does a very good job. Obviously, when we get into longer term planning, we need to look at our go back to our global models. Anyway, we're not really here to talk about models, but they are a really important part of your weather routing. And you can download, all of these are available in Grib in the offshore app. And again, if I said to you that I could help you go half a knot faster on a leg of the course, I'm pretty sure you'd take it. We've just done tidal current modeling for 90% of the world's coastlines. So, and especially places where there is more current, we've done high resolution modeling, and it's that high res modeling is amazing. What it can show you, we'll have a look at it in a bit, but seeing the current turn on the sides first and knowing that that's actually what's happening, seeing where it's stronger and where it's weaker, that's stuff that the router can take into account, and our router does use the tidal currents, but being able to see that yourself and add your own thoughts into what the routing's doing, especially in that really close to shore stuff, that's going to give you a massive advantage. So I know we're here to talk about weather routing, but the tidal currents are just amazing for how you can take advantage of them in yacht racing. You see here, just to explain a little bit more, where there is a lot of current, high resolution. As we get further away from the coast or there's less current, we go to the 400-meter resolution, and then the 4K for a much wider look. And so that does fit in with ocean currents, and we actually have merged those two models together, and you'll see some lines along where the ocean currents join into the tidal currents, and that's just the boundary of the ocean currents. So, but obviously getting the currents right in yacht racing is super critical. Super quickly talk about the data hub. Obviously, having being able to record and monitor your data on board your NMEA, the data hub can send all of your NMEA data out to an iPad or any device that can take that data with any software on there that can accept it. It's pretty cool that it that it can do that. It does a bunch of other really cool things. Not so much your tracking, but this is pretty awesome for racing. I mean, knowing what you've got coming up further than your VHF AAS is excellent for your planning. So we are actually pinging our servers all the time and getting what we call over the horizon AIS, so anything outside of your VHF range, and that can all go into your plotter, your chart plotter, or any other device on board. So have a look at that if you're interested in that. Polars, obviously polars are super important for racing. Having that data right and then fitting that in with the models, it's sort of completing the picture. We can update your polars, and how it does that is actually very clever. It knows when you're motoring, when you're going into the marina, when you're going out of the marina. It's not going to put that into your polars, and will know when you are when you're racing. And you can even turn that on and off as you please. But getting your polars right is a big deal. So obviously we're here to talk about weather routing. We have spent countless hours and over a decade developing our weather routing algorithm. It is super clever, does a very good job. I didn't. I always thought that weather routing was weather routing, and there was only ever the fastest way that the router could do it. Well, we did a study on all the different weather routers out there when we updated our weather router, and most of the time our router will find faster routes than any other routing algorithm out there. There's a huge amount of computing power that goes into that, but finding faster routes is what we're here for, right? So it's cool, and we do have a study for that. I'll look at that in a second. But yeah, it's also pretty simple to use. You don't need a computer science degree to use this, or to be some super boffin to be do your weather routing. One of our goals is to make this stuff accessible. And I'm sure if you've looked at some other racing software, it's pretty complex and pretty hard. Whereas I've found when I've used this that often you don't have time to fiddle around and download all the grids and that stuff. You actually just want to be able to get the data. I remember lying in the floor of the boat that I did a round North Island race on, super rough, lying on the floor, and I pressed 3 buttons on my iPad and was able to get new weather. That sort of thing is pretty good. If I was using anything else, I wouldn't have even been able to update my routing at that time. It was that rough. So yeah, the simplicity is great. But it's hang on, here we go. It's using more data than you could actually download on pretty much any connection. It's using the highest resolution grids. It's using the tidal data. It's using the ocean currents. And your polars all baked into one, and it can actually do that on our servers very quickly. If you are doing some really long races, we do use the ECMWF ensemble after 10 days to give you routing beyond that, just so that it can complete a proper route rather than just using the last time step, which is what most tools will do. We're actually using the 28 to 30-day ensemble. Something that we've done over the last couple of years is wave modeling. So we create a basic model of your boat, and that is actually baked into your routing, and so we will know whether the wave is slowing you down or speeding you up, and we're using all the different wave states. So I think if I scroll down here, the wind wave, primary, secondary, and tertiary swell are all being used in your routing calculations. So whether that's and then we get to see, so that's whether it's speeding you up, slowing you down sort of stuff. And you'll be able to see what that effect is on your polar. But it's also giving us outputs about roll, vertical acceleration, and slamming. And to be fair, this really was developed more with cruising sailors in mind. But, knowing what you're sailing into, you might decide that, to set up differently, get certain sails ready. If it's going to be really rough, vertical acceleration, do you sail with someone that gets seasick? Do they need to have some seasickness tablets beforehand, because this is what this vertical acceleration will tell you. Because having crew that are capable at all times is pretty important. Slamming incidents. This is definitely a yacht racing thing. We end up sailing into weather that we wouldn't necessarily choose to, and so you might, if in the extreme, you might actually try and route around bad weather, or you just know that it's coming and you can prepare, have different, go to your highest level of safety protocol on board and things like that. So yeah, I mentioned just before about the router and how well it does. If you want to have a look at this study that we did, it is online. I'm sure that Kieran can share that, but we did compare all of the common routing tools, and saw how they all performed. And I'll talk about some other stuff around that when we get there. Having a router that takes you over land, sails you into shallow water, it's actually not giving you a good route. One last thing before we get into the actual using the routing, we are about to add a sail crossover chart into the routing, and so this will give you the sail crossovers in your outputs, so that you can plan ahead, stack your sails as you see appropriate, and yeah, so that's a feature that's coming up. Right, let's get into our routing. So just before we go routing, obviously we do have all of our high resolution wind maps and the like, all available to see. If I go to the PWG and I zoom, well, I can just go to the 1K. We got the high resolution modeling is epic if you are doing any coastal sailing. It just, being able to see the effects around islands and things is very good. When the thermal's coming in, all that sort of stuff, positioning yourself for those changes and that sort of thing is next level. I mentioned validation. We do have the validation tool here. You can go and have a look at that. And before I dwell any more on this, I just want to quickly show you the tidal currents, because I love them. And so you can see here, this is the tide here in Auckland right now. And if I just zoom in a bit, you can see we must be around the change, because it's turned on the sides, it's still coming in here. And if I animate forward a bit, you'll see that we start going out. It's really cool. So yeah, go and have a look at the tidal currents. They're super awesome. As I say, we've done 90% of the world's coastlines with the tidal currents. So wherever you are, there will be some data. And so even if you are in an area with the lower resolution, you will still see the trends, and being able to visualize those trends is pretty awesome. And whether the strength is slightly lower or higher than what it should be, being able to see where it's stronger and less is what you're looking for, and looking for those trends. Yeah, we do have a big observation network as well, but I'm not going to talk about that because otherwise we'll be here all day. But observations when you're sailing, racing can be pretty critical. Has that southwest change came through? Where's that front? All that sort of thing. It looks like I'm in Auckland. I didn't really want to be here. Let's go and choose somewhere else. Just have a look. Righty-ho. So before we can do any routing, we need to come in and set our polars. So, for your routing, we do have our green start waypoint and our red destination waypoint. And, we can just move those around, and we have the the lat long here that we can put them in. We can, if we have a GPS enabled device, we can click on this and it will take us to where we are, and we can update that whenever we're when we're underway. But before we get into any of that, we need to set up our polars. So we're going to come up here to routing preferences, and we've probably got a bit to talk about here, because there's more than one way you can do this. So on the list here, we have predefined, sail, and advanced, and AI. So sail is not for yacht racing. It's a very basic, my boat goes in 15 knots, my boat goes upwind at 50 degrees at 5 knots, blah, blah. Not something that we really would be suitable for yacht racing. So over here, we do have a predefined list. If you don't have polars for your boat, this is a good place to start. Excuse me, I'll just have a drink. So we do have, a big list of polars in here. We have some generic ones up here, but, I don't know, maybe you've got your AC72 or whatever you've got. But, there is a lot of race boats in here, and we do, obviously, if you have a ORC polars or something like that, you can also import them. But yeah, if you don't have polars and you want, choose something that is pretty similar to your boat. If you race, you'll know what boats are a similar speed to yours. So I've from the list there, I've selected a 52-foot far. I'm guessing that's somewhere probably an older TP design or similar. And so I've got that polar in there, and you can see over here I've got my performance curve, and we can look at all our different angles and wind speeds and boat speeds there. What I can do, and so that we can have a look at it, is that we can copy it to the advanced polar. So I've pressed that button there, and then I click on this advanced button, and we have our chart, and we have our true wind speed down here, and then 2 blank columns, true wind angle, boat speed, true wind angle, boat speed. So 8 knots at 41.7 true wind angle, we're doing 7 knots at 52. We come across to our downwind angles. These here look like our optimums, and we can have all of those set up. You can adjust these. You can also import a polar. So as I said, if you have an ORC polar, you can import it into here, and you can also export your polar if you wish to. So yeah, getting this right is a pretty big deal. If you have a data hub and you want to spend set it up and have this AI polar to generate your polars, it is very, very clever, and does an amazing job of your polars. And you can you put your base polar in, and then it will over time will adjust your polar to how you're actually sailing the boat. It's reading your NMEA data, so it has a pretty good idea of what's going on. For today, I'll just stick with the predefined, and and we'll look at the outputs a bit later as to do we sail our boat like this? The boat that I sail on, we didn't have or don't have polars for it, and so I started with a FAR 40 and then adjusted those polars over time. So down here, this is our wave polar. If I turn that off, it's gone. We want the auto wave polar. The manual wave polar is the old way we used to do it. I wouldn't do that. So we can change our displacement. These are the parameters that the router wants for our wave routing. And you can see, just displacement, waterline length, hull depth, and beam. And so that creates a pretty basic 3D model, but we don't need to be super super complex on that, because the it's just looking at the wave stuff and giving us wave outputs. 100% recommend using this. You'll see the outputs later. So it's awesome. As I mentioned before, depth avoidance. If your routing tool is bouncing you off the land or putting you in places where you can't actually sail, it's not giving you a very accurate route. So you can change this depth avoidance. It uses a depth contour from CMAP, and it's not a nav tool, but it just gives you more accurate routes because it's not sailing you into places that you can't actually sail. Tidal and ocean currents, if we're doing bigger offshore passages, we can choose which ocean current model that the router is using to calculate your route. You might want to have a look at the different models, compare them with the SST, see which one looks closest to what you have, or you might have experience in an area with a particular model that you like. But yeah, you do have that option to change that if you want. Advanced routing adjustments, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty and you think that you can do better than the router, you can adjust this. I guess what we do see people do here with the true wind speed scale factor is because routing is always running using the average wind speed. If it's particularly gusty, you might want, or it's going to be above, I don't know, 12, 15 knots for much of your route. You can scale this up. So people might put this at 110 or 111% just to account for the fact that when it's gusty, you're going faster. But that can be in your polars as well. If you're doing a really long route, you might want to look at if the breeze went left more than the models have it. Where would I end up? Would that be faster? You can actually go back and compare the routes. And so you might be like, I'm going to position myself on this side of the fleet or this side. But just remember that you've got, it will show you in your routing outputs that that's turned on. We'll leave that at 110 for today. So we've got that all set up there. Obviously, we are optimizing for fastest time. This comfort is a cruising sailor's tool. Even then, I don't recommend that people use it. Routing for the fastest time is always the best, and then you use your seamanship to how you want. Something that we should note here is I want to turn my motoring off. So that's again a cruising feature. And then this polar speed adjustment. Now you'll see here I have this set at 90 for night. I'm going to put it at 95. Sailing at night's hard, and if you can sail to your polar at night, well, good on you. That's great. And this is a course adjustment where you can actually just bring your polar down or up. If you blow out a sail, you might need to put your downwind. You got a bit over the top at the start, and you blew out that A2. You might need to put your downwind speed down a bit. So we'll leave that like that for funsies. Tack and jibe penalties. Especially if you're coastal sailing and doing quite a lot of maneuvers, you can increase this penalty, so the router will jibe or tack you less. And also, depending on what your boat is, you might want to increase that if it takes you a long time to jibe or tack. Depending on the size of your boat or whether it's a catamaran, those penalties can be pretty useful to put in there. So it's just it gives you it'll do two things. It'll slow the router down when you do those things, but also if you increase that penalty, the router will give you less tacks and jibes. So you might want to bring it down. Depends on where you're going. Okay. Where do we want to go? We've set up our polars. Let's go somewhere. Let's go back over to the States. And I will zoom in here. Could have gone up to Newport, couldn't I? But we won't. So I've got my start and finish waypoints there. As I mentioned before, I can, as I move these round, I can change them. I could just do a coastal route down here if I wanted to. And I can, I can put my lat long in. I can add waypoints, and I can also add port and starboard roundings if you have marks of your course. You can even, if you have a lot of marks in your course, you can import a whole lot of waypoints. You know, it's a pretty common thing to have to go around certain waypoints, and so you can add those in and add them as port and starboard roundings. If you don't have to put waypoints in there, don't. You're better to let the algorithm do its thing. So yeah, and then I can adjust my start time. Obviously, if I'm preparing for a race, zoomy fingers. Oh, what have I done? Preparing for a race, you might be doing, running your routing for 3, 4, 5 days beforehand, weeks beforehand, running the routes. And so obviously you can't go too far ahead because you'll run out of weather. But, especially in those few days before a race, running the routing over and over at your start time is really good. So actually, I'll come back over here. So something else that we can do is add boundaries. So if there was particular areas that we wanted to avoid, we can add a boundary in, and the router will respect that. There may be just a navigational hazards that you want to avoid, so you can add a boundary in, and it will avoid it. So we're all set up for our routing. Haven't run this route, so let's see how we go. And haven't used those polars. So at the moment, this knows it's me, it knows it's Nick, and it knows I've got a my 52 footer, and what my polars are. It knows, it's done the 3D model of my boat. I've got my depth avoidance in there, and it has just calculated my route using the highest resolution models it can, and all that ocean data, tidal current data, it's all been crunched on the servers, and now I've got this output back, and we can have a look at it. And I can change my models and look at the different models and see what's going on. And I can look at the gusts as well, and so we can see whether we've got high gusts and whatnot. But yeah, so what we can see here with all the different colors is our different model outputs. So to be fair, these are pretty much in agreement. There's obviously a bit of discrepancy here, and we've got sort of these 4 models all look like we jibe at the same time. And this guy jibes earlier, and I don't even think the PWG thinks that we're going to jibe there. He's just going to be, so he's obviously, if I zoom forward to this point, you'll see these different thoughts of what the models are doing. So something really important to notice here is if I come to here, what's the time now? 16:50. By about here, I'll be updating my, I'll have new model runs, and I'll be updating. Important note that is possibly not as clear as it should be. The GFS will actually be using the NAM model in this routing. So Kieran can probably put some details up of when it is using that, but it will be using the NAM for the route, and we're about to put some references into the tables that'll let you know that. So what's going on here? We'll come down here, and yeah, it goes light. So you can see why the ECMWF doesn't want us to go in here. We are looking at the 50K. If we go into the offshore app, we can look at the high res. But what's happening there? Why is, yeah, goes super light. So obviously these models think there's going to be more breeze out here. And obviously light winds are tricky. So we definitely want to be updating our models as soon as we could. And we might even go and have a look at the HER when we're sailing down here. There's a few other things here that, you know, obviously when we're racing, we might actually just put a waypoint here, right? So on our plotter, we might put a waypoint here. We're going to know what sails we want to sail on. We're going to come in here into our tables, but we would literally just be sailing our boat as fast as we could. We're not trying to follow these lines. We're going to say, okay, we're going to head to here or here. And when we get this, let's switch back over to the EC. When we get to here, there's going to be a point where we jibe, and you can see as that breeze starts to come behind us, we're going to jibe. And on board, having our waypoint where we're likely to jibe, you know, there's going to be quite a few factors there as to when we do it. And so this is when, from about here on, we want to be thinking about it, depending on whether you're on a fully crewed boat or two-handed or you know, single-handed. You want to be starting to think about, when am I going to be doing this jibe? Because we're not, by the time we got to here, the routing, you know, are we faster or slower than our route? Are we, you know, is the forecast, has it changed? What's happening? So we just want to be thinking about when we're going to put that jibe in. And same down in here, you know, this is going to start where we're really going to need to start thinking about what we're doing. And then if I come up here to our tables, and you can see we have our wind speeds. These are our average wind speeds for our routes. And you'll see that the trend is pretty similar across all the models for the wind speed. Obviously, this NAM and GFS think that it's higher, and so we may want to look at what are we getting on board versus what the models say. Remembering that we're looking at averages here, and so which one's doing the best job, which one's doing the best job for direction, and our directions don't change too much in that first period, probably before we would update our route. Yeah, true wind angle for the whole route. So just here you'll see rain and cape. No rain, but our cape levels do come up. If we saw rain here, we would want to be aware that we could experience thunderstorms. Temperature, pressure. So here's where we start to get into our wave stuff. There's our combined wind wave and swell, wave direction, but this is combined wind wave and swell, right? So let's come down here, current speed, current direction, and then here's our roll. So this is our roll in RMS. So this is from our wave modeling. And you'll see we get reasonably rough here. And so we sort of say anything above 4 starts to get pretty nasty. But, you know, this up here in this 3.5 could be a bit uncomfortable. But so we might just want to consider, once we sort of start to get into this, you know, you've got to make sure that you've got your harness on and you're clipped on the whole time, through this period here. And we can plan for it because we can see it in the routing. Vertical acceleration, we don't go up to 0.2, so we're not too bad. And we don't have any boat slamming, so we're not chopping any wood there, so that's good. Yeah, we can look at this in other ways as well. So here's all our points along our route. And we have our warning there. So what's our warning? Wind chill. So that was something I hadn't noticed. So, pretty important stuff to know. It's, we need to keep our crew warm, and we can plan for this because we've just been told about it. So that's why we have these warnings. You'll see all sorts of warnings like wind against tide, wind chill, thunderstorms, and it's stuff that you may not necessarily instantly pick up, but the warnings will pop up here in your route. So this is everything. They've got all the different models here, and we can look at all the different the wind speeds. We've got the gusts there as well, and then we have our true wind direction, true wind angle, course over ground, speed over ground. So this is where you want to sort of come and have a look at the routing outputs. In 12.7 knots at 50 or nearly 60 true wind angle, do we do 9.6 knots? And so this is sort of where we can start to think about, does this match up with our polars? We've got a lot of warnings down here, fog. So again, things that we might want to prepare for. So pretty cool that we have all this information in there, and can use that to plan ahead. Again, more wave stuff here. We can look at all the different wave directions. So you see here we have the combined wind wave and swell, wind wave, primary swell, secondary swell, tertiary swell. If there's no data there, that means that the secondary and tertiary aren't there. But where you do see them, they can be, that can sort of when we get that confused sea state, even between the wind wave and the primary swell, looking at the direction of those two different sea states, and the period. Sorry, that's the height and the period. So you can see there our outputs. If we want to export our route, we can select which model we would like to export, and we can export that and put it into any nav software we want. So we'll come back over here to the map, and yeah, we can also look at our currents in here, which is nice to think about because we can then plan for that. You'll see here we're on the ocean current model. If I come right back here and go to tidal, and you'll see this is our high res tidal current coming out of the Chesapeake here, and it's pretty cool to see that we are going to get a pretty good push out of there, and as we come round. So that's 100 meter resolution tidal currents. GMDSS, if we go back to, actually right now, so something, just a warning system. If we look at this, if I zoom out and I can see this, I'll go off the tides. We'll go back to wind. Let's go to gust. And you'll see here we actually have this little icon on the screen. So this is from the GMDSS forecast, and that's what these other things are here as well. And so that's a written forecast from a meteorologist. If we look at, click on that, it says this tropical depression, high seas forecast. So that's referring to the GMDSS warning that we've got there. And I load this, and this is why we did the graphical GMDSS, is I look at this and I go, what am I looking at? Which bit is it? And it's this bit here. So this talks about the gale warning from the low and, its boundaries. But we have some software that's actually reading these and updating them and turning them into the graphical elements that you see on the screen there. So I'm just going to quickly stop sharing that screen and share this one. And we're just going to have a super quick look at the offshore app. So I was just downloading something before we started. the webinar. Just click on close. Oh, screen sharing is paused. Stop sharing. Share screen. Offshore. Share. Cool. You can see my screen. So you see here we've got almost got the exact same view that we had just before when we were in the PredictWind forecast website, which is the same as the app. And so, but now I've moved over to the offshore app. So everything I've downloaded in here can be saved offline. I have all the same route information before. This is a different route. And I can look at all my different swell types in here. You know, the period, direction, so primary swell, secondary swell, and just sort of knowing what this stuff is going to do, how rough it's going to be, we can plan for it. If I come back over here to my map, what have I done? I've done a route from Auckland to Fiji, and I can do all the same stuff that I did before. I can look at the ocean data, which I didn't look at before. We just looked at the tidal currents, but this is all in here, and all of this will save offline. But this is the tool that I use because it saves everything offline. In here, if I downloaded all my high resolution grids, so if I came in here and hang on, let's just cancel that and come up here. Let's say that we're going to route to here. So this is where I can choose all of my grids. So depending on what my connection type is, so before I left, I would get everything as high resolution as possible. I'd download everything I could. I'd get the maximum amount of days, and I would get the highest resolution modeling I could. And then my weather routing, I can choose my departure time, the GMDSS stuff, observations. We do have, there are observations offshore, so you can download that if you want. I've got tidal currents. I'll get the RTOFS, satellite imagery, and AIS data is actually what I wanna look at as well. So I click on download there, and we're going to download our weather route and our grids. So as soon as I've done this, everything is saved onto the device. And you'll see here my grids are downloading, and this is really important to note, and something that you should know when the grids update if you go on yacht racing, because when you get those, getting that new forecast can be a race winning move. So you see here I have the date. So this is the date of my computer, the date and time relevant to my computer. And so because obviously when we're using this tool, we can be going between time zones. But yeah, so we've got our grid update times here. So this is important to note that I know I've got new data. It tells me what the model is, what parameters I've downloaded. So, you know, ECMWF global, 9K wind, rain, pressure, cape, and gust. That's what I've downloaded in that model. And you'll see here that I don't have all of those parameters in all of the models, because not all of the models have all of the parameters. So we'll see there. But yeah, knowing these update times is critical. And then you can see I've got PWG, 1K, 1 hour time steps, and these are my high resolution grids. And you'll see there's lots of them, and they're data hungry. And so that's one of the cool things about the router. The router is using all of this high resolution data anyway. And yeah, I've downloaded them all. And you see my tidal currents there. My observations are still downloading. Everything else has got a little tick next to it. My weather router is completed. And you'll see there it has the exact time of my weather route. My observations have now downloaded. So everything's downloaded there. I know I've got all my new weather. I know when they're updated. And you'll see here the tidal currents haven't updated today yet. They update at 1 o'clock. And so they've got that different date stamp on them. So let's close that and move my zoom controls, come back to the map. and zoom in, and I can look at all my different parameters here and choose my models, same as before. I can turn this AIS on, and so this shows me where this is all satellite and terrestrial AIS, so that I can have that and plan ahead. Do I want to put a boundary into miss a fishing fleet or something like that? That's what I can use that for. And it'll give me AIS targets within 300 nautical miles of my start point. We do have observations. Don't know whether they're only going to show up. If I zoom in, I'll probably see some more. We have a huge amount of observations around Auckland here, but being able to see these on any connection is pretty cool. My ocean data. We'll see if we can see the tidal currents. So you'll see there all these little squares. They are the different areas that I can download and look at. And if I just might be out of time zone for that. There's my little boat. There's my little boat. These are all my grib areas. So, and I come back to my weather routing, and we should be able to see our high-res grib areas here too, which I've got turned off. And you'll see here I have a boundary set up in here because I don't want the router to go through here. Sometimes it thinks it's faster, but I don't want to do that. So you'll see here I've got this grib area, and then as I move forward, I'll move into the global area. We come down here closer into Auckland. I'm in my high-res grib areas. We do have some tutorials on the offshore app and how to use it. You see I've got another boundary there as well. And so, yeah, I would recommend going and having a look at those and reach out to our support team if you have any questions on it. All right, thanks everybody. And yeah, as Karen says, reach out if you have any questions, and thank you for your time.